As a major topic in the news lately, you've probably been hearing a lot about the issue of immigration, right along with President Trump's plan to build a wall along the United States-Mexican border in an effort to implement further restrictions on immigration. And whether or not that ever materializes, it definitely brings into light the question, is immigration really such a problem for America that we're considering going to such extreme measures to address that? So clearly, President Trump feels so. In a 2017 poll conducted by CBS, 39% of Americans support the building of such a wall to reduce immigration into the United States. Deporting of immigrants already living in the United States is also part of that plan, all part of Trump's plan to make America great again. But does decreasing the number of immigrants in the country really accomplish that? Before making such an assumption, I believe it's important to look at some of the facts and statistics regarding immigration into the United States. Firstly, many people may not realize that the large majority of immigrants are here legally, and those that are here illegally are here for reasons that a lot of people, I feel like, don't fully understand or think about. But if we're going to go through all this trouble to keep them out, shouldn't we be asking ourselves, who are these people, why are they coming, and are they really such a threat to our nation's well-being? Life in Mexico is much different than life in America. People work longer hours for much less money. They receive very little help from an exceptionally corrupt government. Compared to children in the United States, the average Mexican child experiences low material living conditions and receives a much lower quality education. It's not uncommon in poor families that children go without food, without shoes, without proper clothing, or then they end up working in the streets to help their families get by and survive, essentially. What parent would not go to drastic lengths to save their child from hunger, an unsafe environment, and an education system that will never allow them to reach their full potential? This is why some immigrants attempt to bring or start families in a place in which their children can prosper instead of suffer. Not because they are bad or less deserving people, but because they want the same things for their children that any parent wants. But moving one's family into the United States isn't really an option. Men sometimes leave their wife and children to come here and to work and support their families just in an effort to improve their quality of life. Many people assume that means taking good jobs away from Americans, but is that really the case? Research actually indicates that there's little connection between immigrant labor and unemployment rates of American workers. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, these workers are most likely to be employed by the service industry and working hard labor jobs that are available because Americans often don't want them or often quit them. This is because there's a growing trend in America in which a lot of American workers feel like they are overqualified for such jobs. And many, frankly, are content relying on government assistance until a more desirable job opportunity becomes available to them. Unfortunately, immigrant workers in these kinds of jobs are often taken advantage of because they do rely on them to support their families. And these employers often pay them less, don't provide proper benefits, and ignore worker safety laws. Economically, though, Americans are actually benefiting from this because they're getting lower prices on food, on groceries, and services provided through these employers due to immigrant labor. And speaking of benefits, a lot of people ask, why should immigrants receive government assistance if they don't pay taxes? Well, firstly, they actually do pay taxes. Immigrants pay sales taxes every time they buy gas, clothing, groceries, most anything. And they also pay property taxes, which are used to fund schools anytime they rent an apartment or buy a home. Yet they receive neither welfare or food stamps like Americans are able to. In fact, the U.S. Social Security Administration estimated in 2013 undocumented immigrants and their employers paid $13 billion in payroll taxes alone for benefits that these immigrants will never receive. So really, I think that's a big misunderstanding that a lot of people have about the situation with which benefits they are able to receive. And the last concern that I would like to address is a pretty common fear that undocumented immigrants bring increased crime into our country. While there is, of course, cases of immigrants that have engaged in criminal activity in the United States, this is certainly not the norm or the typical immigrant that's coming here. According to the National Institute of Corrections, foreign-born people in America are actually incarcerated at a much lower rate than native-born Americans. So hopefully looking at these facts, people can realize that, concerns about unemployment, welfare abuse, crime rates, these are all very legitimate concerns, but they're often directed at the wrong groups of people. From what I can tell, these are not immigration problems, but rather problems that we Americans are predominantly creating ourselves in our country. So the next time the news is on and you hear that a great big wall between the United States and Mexico is going to solve all of our problems, I urge you to question that, to research that, and to seek both empathy and understanding of the issue before choosing a side. Thank you.